So that the last time we left off, you had been living in, were you in Amritsar and you were about to go to Bangalore, right? Or
Yeah, that's right. I'm about to go to Bangalore. That's
and
right.
okay. So in our last interview, you talked a lot about your life back in India after living in Europe. So when you came back to India, was there anything that you really missed about Europe?
Not really. We had a 2 years wonderful experience and really a holiday.
You talked a lot about your postings. And what exactly were you doing in those workshops? Like, what was your job during that time?
I was commanding a what's called station workshop.
Hmm.
Workshop, it looks after all the equipment in that area. So I was commanding that workshop, and in between I also went for a course because I wanted to go and do my this thing, staff college. I got my posting order and I packed, took my family and went to Bangalore. When I reached Bangalore, I was told that there has been delay in your coming and the team that is going to Switzerland is already selected and ready to go. So you are not going to Switzerland. I was a little upset. General Sarup was my immediate boss, then Lieutenant Colonel Sarup. So I told him that this is not fair. I've come all the way from there and now I am told you not to Switzerland. So he told the boss, one Colonel Mehta, that Colonel Mani is very unhappy. He says he can go back. I said I cannot go back now. I brought my family here. Doesn't matter. So he made me a Lieutenant Colonel officiating. So I got the pay of a Lieutenant Colonel. That was, he did that to make me a bit happy. There are 6 or 7 majors senior to me, but in spite of that, he gave me the job of officiating. But about the ranks of a major, then the 62 war started. In the meantime, some little bit about our that short stay in Bangalore. We got a double-story house. Vijay and Kamal were going to school.
So how old would they have been at this time?
This is 1962. So Vijay was, so he was 8 years old and Kamal was 5 years old. Vijay was going in a rickshaw along with 2 girls. What he used to do, outside the house, he used to sit in the rickshaw. And once they turned the corner, he used to get down. He didn't want to sit with girls, so he used to run along with the rickshaw right up to school. But he won't sit in the rickshaw. And Kamal, of course, was happy going to school. Madhu used to go on the first floor and dress up Kamal to go to school and come down. What he'll do, he'll again remove all his clothes. So Madhu will again go upstairs and dress him. She was going up and down. Eventually, he will bring him down, fully dressed, and go to school. And Madhu, in this going up and down the house in 2 floors, became like a skeleton, very thin. But she managed. We had a lot of friends, a lot of fun, and it was a very, very pleasant and short stay. In 1962, the Chinese aggression war started. And out of 6 majors in ILE, only one was posted out. That's me. The army wanted me back very badly. So I got a posting and I moved to Assam. My in-laws were at that time staying in Calcutta. That is Malhotra Sahab, Mrs. Malhotra, and Lalti and Kumar. Lalti and Kumar were running a dry cleaning shop called Snow White, which belonged to Mummy's two uncles, masters. So they asked them they can start another Snow White. And no, because Mummy's whole family was there, and Calcutta was so near where I was posted, I decided to move the family to Calcutta. That was a very big mistake. In Calcutta, we hired a house in a very filthy locality, and a filthy house, very bad house. My elder brother was posted to a place nearby in Calcutta, near Calcutta, and there was no schooling there. So he sent all his three children also to live with Madhu, and five children were going to school. Vijay, Kamal, and my brother's three children. So, and the house was terrible. There was a dog. The dog had fleas. Fleas used to climb on the wall. Madhu had the toughest time of her life. Only advantage was I used to come back from Sam almost every month once and spend a few days with her. But she had one of the five children won't come in the evening. Then she'll go around looking for him. And she had a very, very tough. My younger brother, in the meantime, in 64, got married. 63 September, I think. And then in 1964, he was posted to Devlali. Earlier he was in Jodhpur, he was posted to Devlali. And I went and left the family in Devlali to get Madhu rid of this terrible time she had. But she managed very well, but she had a very, very difficult time. 64 January, I came from Assam and moved the family to stay with my brother in Devlali. So in 1965, I got posted to Delhi. The family came and joined me in Delhi. We got a reasonable house in Defense Colony and we started living there. And I was working in Army headquarters. Then the 65 war started with Pakistan. My younger brother was at that time in the artillery. They have this air observation post, air OP. He was an air OP. Air OP means they go up in an aircraft. They don't cross the border. They stay on their side of the border. And when the guns fire from this side, they guide the guns to the target.
Because he was in the Air Force, right?
No, he was in the Army.
Oh, Army.
In the Army, there's a branch called Air OP, Air Observation Post. So he was trained as a pilot and he became an Air OP. And he was posted to a place called Adampur near Amritsar. When there was some incident in the regiment, 2 officers died, and my brother had suddenly to move to Jalandhar. And my Babi Anju was left alone in Adampur. So I was in Army headquarters. So I went in my uniform, took my car. No, actually, my brother's car was with me and my car was with him. Took his car, went there. And from there, I brought her back in my car. She was alone there. And every evening on that airfield, there used to be bombardment. Adampur was an airfield. They were guarding that airfield. So I brought her back. And I was wearing uniform. the people of Punjab, by the time I reached Delhi, my car was full of food and flowers. People will stop you on the way, give you flowers, give you food. And I mean, the people of Punjab really were with the army. I came back and we moved from Defense Colony to Dhola Kuan because there were recently built flats in Dhola Kuan where I got accommodation. And Dhola Kuan Club had just started. We all became members of the club and we had a really great time. Group Captain Chaudhary, you know our neighbor in Janakpuri. He's our neighbor. He was our neighbor there. We were in the same block. This auction of Janakpuri flats took place at that time. Chaudhary said, I am going to make you my neighbor. I said, nothing doing. I never want to buy a house. Fools buy houses, wise men live in them. He said, no. Mataji said, no, you have to buy a lot. I said, I have no money. She said, I will give money. So we went, myself and Chaudhary, took part in this auction and bought 2 adjacent plots in Janakpur. In 1967, I got promotion to Lieutenant Colonel in the same organization where I had gone earlier. Again wanted me, and I went to Bangalore in 1967 and joined this organization. By then, it was called not ILE but CIL, Chief Inspectorate of Electronics. So I got posted there. Family went there. Children started going to school. Vijay also wanted to join the army. So he went for a selection board. But on his way from Bangalore to Madras, Tamil Nadu, there's a big floods and this thing. And he got stuck there one day late. So they said, sorry, you're late, go back. We came back. In the meantime, what I'd done was, I put him in engineering college. I said, if you don't go to the army, you can do engineering. So he came back and said, no, I will do engineering, forget about the army. So he continued to do engineering. We had a really good time in from 67 onwards in Bangalore. I used to go away to the factory in a company vehicle, and Madhu had to do all the running around. She used to drive car, take kids to hospital, go and do shopping. There was a very good shopping place not very far from our house. She used to drive there, but she doesn't know how to park there. So she used to request somebody to park the car for her. Go and buy vegetables, come back in the car and come back. And then take kids to hospital. All that duty used to do. And all the children had cycles. So they used to go to school and cycle. Vijay was going to a school of which he's still a member association. It is very good school, very proud of it. Vijay, of course, was doing engineering. And we had very good social life, very good. We had so many friends. Everybody in his house had kept some hens for eggs. We also had a small room on our terrace where we had about 25, 30 hens. So whenever a hen becomes ill, her tail goes down. So Madhu used to take that to a veterinary hospital for treatment. Eventually we learned that they never recover. So said, because we were told that whenever it becomes ill, just cut it and eat it. Don't run to hospitals. Kari's family was staying with us for some time. Choto was very, very naughty, cheated. She used to run on the parapet between our and neighbor's house. And one day she fell down and was badly injured. I was away in Bell, so my dear wife took her to hospital, admitted her there, and she became all right. But it was pretty serious. Otherwise, we had such good friends. One day, we had Lals were our friends. The whole family used to go there, eat there. So one day we went there and came back and got a ring from them. You have left some valuable behind you. I said, no. Actually, Neera had gone to sleep there in their bedroom. we came back without her. So they said, you have left something very valuable here. What happened now was that I was posted to Bharat Electronics as a chief inspector on behalf of CIL. CIL had a resident inspector who used to be in charge of inspecting all the equipment that they made for the army. I had a team who used to inspect everything and clear it before. So, in the meantime, in 1971, Bell got permission to start another factory in Ghaziabad. And my ex-boss in 509, Pesi Madan, now Brigadier Pesi Madan, was taken as an officer on special duty to start the factory in Ghaziabad. I was, as an inspector, was fair but very tough. So there was a problem in one of their equipment. So I stopped those equipment from going out. Those equipment were in big shelters. So the entire companies, it's a huge company, all the verandas were full up of the shelters that had stopped from going out. The CMD at that time was the signals officer, Lieutenant General Ayappa. He had joined Bell as a chief. He was very upset. So there was a meeting with the R&D people where they called me and said, there's nothing wrong with this equipment, why have you stopped? And General Ayappa was sitting there. He used to roam around and come and attend meetings. He was sitting there. So what the designer said, I guarantee that there's nothing wrong with this. I said, I cannot pass equipment on your guarantee. There is a problem. I will tell you the problem. I will tell you the solution. You solve it, and then I let your equipment. So actually, then there was a problem in the transformer. This was being built with German technology, the Swiss technology. And there was a transformer in which they were supposed to put oil. So they were not putting oil in the transformer. It was as simple as that. I told them, they did that, their equipment passed and was sent to them. So this General Ayappa, being a signal officer himself, appreciated that I did a good thing for the army. So when the question of taking another officer for setting up the Ghaziabad factory, the guy who was now officer in special duty was my ex-boss from Agra. So he told General Ayappa, can we take many? But for this incident that happened, Ayappa would have never agreed to an EME officer to come. He would have liked a signal officer to come. Because he appreciated what I did, he said yes. He said yes. So I came in 1969 on deputation to Bell as a lieutenant colonel. I was still on the ranks of the army. I was in deputation, but I was not retired. I was still a serving officer, but on deputation.
So what does that mean?
That means that you are on deputation. Army has deputed you to this place. You are on the army rolls. You get paid your army thing. Of course, they pay on behalf of the army. Whatever is your pay and this thing from the army, you get the same thing. You don't get the bells, this thing of army. So I continued on deputation till 1973. In the meantime, I was promoted to a full colonel on the basis of one below. That is, the chap who was one below me in the regular army became due for promotion. They cannot promote me without promoting me. So I became a full colonel. We, myself and Brigadier Madan, we used to come to Ghaziabad. The UP government gave us a huge plot, 250 acres. Maybe we needed 5 acres.
And where was this?
Ghaziabad. So we said, okay, give us. So we took that land.
What kind of land was it? Was it like, could you use it?
It was a forest. Not a proper forest, but shrubs and things like that. In 1971, I think, we appointed the consultant and the contractor, and the factory building started. I moved my family to Delhi, actually in a place called Vivek Vihar, very near the Bell Colony, the Bell Building. So we stayed in Vivek Vihar. In the meantime, Vijay finished his engineering and took up a job in Bangalore. In 1973 sometime, we started building the house in Janak. Mataji was a great help. He used to go and stay with Chaudhary. Chaudhary had already built his house and supervised. And I used to go either on a car or a scooter. Once when I was coming back on a scooter, I had a very serious accident. There's a truck in front of me and a buffalo came in front of the truck. So the truck suddenly braked and I went into the truck. The truck guy put me in the truck and took me home. Fortunately, my brother was there, elder brother. He had come to visit us with his family. So they immediately put me in the car and took me to the army hospital in Delhi. In between, there was a very big civil hospital. They tried to take me there, but I passed out. And eventually, I landed in military hospital. Vijay came to Delhi and said, I'm not going to work in Pune anymore. So he applied for a job as a probationary engineer in Bell. And in the selection board, he came number 1. That deputy commissioner told me, your son is so brilliant. Why don't you send him to IAS? Why? I said, he's an engineer, he wants to work here. He said, he has done very well in the. So, Vicky joined Bell. My CMD was a little concerned because I, being the general manager, and my son working there, same company, was a little, because it could create some difficulty. So he asked me, are you concerned or relaxed about your son? I said, my son is such a person. He'll never create any trouble. Whenever he, sometimes he used to miss a bus or something like that. So he could easily come home with me in my car. Never did that. In 1974, we built our house in Janakpuri. In the factory, the Communist Union was giving lots of problems. CPIM, Communist Party of India Marxist, their trade union was called C2. They were giving lots of problems, not only in my factory, but all over the Ghaziabad belt. They just won't let anybody work. I was not his boss at that time. So I had thought in my mind, when I become the boss, I will sort this guy out. So in 1979, when I took over as general manager, I decided to lock out the factory. I convinced the Ministry of Defense and my MD that the company cannot run unless we sort this out. So we locked out Bell for 69 days. And Vijay became a driver. During this period of our stay in Janakpuri, we had excellent life. We had very good friends. Kamala and Jagdish used to go to, we were very fond of theatre, want to go to plays, want to go to restaurants. We had a really, really good time, good social life. Kamal was already in NDA, National Defense Academy, near Pune, Kadakwala. 79, I became general manager. So we had a car and a driver at our disposal. We were allowed to use the car for private purposes for 500 kilometers. But it didn't matter if you used more than just Nishu. But Nishu kept a record of how we used that car. We used to make sure that we used it for 500 kilometers. We used to go out, go to Connaught Place, eat in restaurants, go to cinema, do all sorts of things. Nishu took over everything as expected. Then they moved to UK in 1983. So he started applying for doing MTech. So he got entry into MTech in a university. We had very good relations with Marconi. As you know, I had studied in Marconi College in apprenticeship. And Marconi sponsored him to Loughborough University. I was happy. That he got an opportunity to go out. Meera got married and immediately moved to Canada. In 1979 December, I had gone on a visit to Saudi Arabia and some place and UK. I used to make sure that whenever I go abroad, I visit UK so that I could stay through. Then in 79 December, I bought a ticket, my own ticket, from London to Calgary. Meera and Pinky at that time were not in Vancouver, they were in Calgary. So I took a flight to Calgary, stayed there for a week. Meera was carrying Vikas, so I get a ring from Vijay one day. I was supposed to come back on 13th December. He said, Daddy, there's an interview for the post of Executive Director, Bangalore. I said, look, I'm booked by a flight on 13th, so I cannot reach for this interview. Let them do whatever they want. The two chaps, at that time, all these postings were controlled by the central government. There used to be a selection board used to select. Those two guys appeared, hoping that the chap for whom they had created that post in Bangalore will get selected. So the board said, no, we will wait for Colonel Mani to come back and interview. So I came back, I was interviewed, and the board said, Colonel Mani is number one, Bapu Sitaram, another general manager from Bell, is number two, and chap they wanted to promote there was put as number three. So they said, Colonel Mani is selected. They didn't want to take me there. They wanted KC to be appointed there. So eventually they created another post of a executive director Ghaziabad. So once there were two posts, I got one, KC got one. In the meantime, Bapu Sitaram obliged them by dying. He died, so there were only two candidates left. There were two posts. I got one, and KC got. KC became ED Bangalore. I became ED Ghaziabad. Bell Ghaziabad, which had lost all its investment, I made it profitable. I started making embarrassing profits. On an output of 30 crores, I would make a profit of 13 crores. And they'll say, how are you making such big profits? What I used to do was, every year I used to increase the price of my goods to the Air Force by 10%. I did very well in Bell. When I was about to retire from Bell, the Secretary Defense Production, one Mr. Sareen, told me, I've got cabinet approval for you to start an instrument factory in Dehradun for 3 years. Government of India, cabinet has already approved your appointment and starting of the sector. I was very excited to go and live in Dehradun for 3 years. What happened? From the office of Secretary Defense Production, Sareen, some papers were lost. And Sareen was told to go home. So I understood that this opportunity is now gone. The man who was doing it for me is gone. In the meantime, in Bell, we had a tie-up for manufacturing radars with a French company called Thomson CSF. And I spent a lot of time in Paris learning how to start the factory and inspecting the first radar. Actually, the Air Force was supposed to inspect that radar. They told me, we know nothing about it. We authorize you to inspect this radar on our behalf. I said, look, I am offering you this radar. How can, no, we don't know anything about radar. Please inspect it on our behalf. So, to inspect that radar, it took a few months. It's a huge thing. So, I spent a lot of time in Paris. I saw Paris more thoroughly than any Parisian could have. What I used to do, every evening, I'll select one area to go. So after I come back from work to my hotel, I used to catch a tube and go to a particular area. See whatever I wanted to see there for a couple of hours. and then look for a cheap restaurant to eat. The government used to give very little money to people on deputation. People used to go, hardly any money. In Paris, there is a rule that every restaurant has to display its menu with prices on their gate. The cheapest food was Vietnamese food. I used to go and see the menus outside these Vietnamese restaurants and select one and go and eat there. Thompson CSF used to take us for dinner to the top places. So on their expenditure, we had dinner in Moulin Rouge. Then my whole team was taken to Lidos for a visit there. I had about 8-10 boys with me inspecting the radar. They treated us very well because they knew that they don't have to give any incentive. All they gave me was one pen and one handbag. I could have got from Thompson CSF a few $1 million. I didn't take a penny. Gave them a lot of trouble. Made sure that the equipment was good. I find what is wrong. I also need to tell them how to correct it and get it passed. So I spent a wonderful, wonderful time in Paris. Very happy to be there. Then for whatever little money I had, I could look for some gift for my children. Specifically for Meera. Then I made 3 visits to UK when Vijay was there. Niti, they had no money. So Niti used to wait for Dada to come and buy us. So I remember I bought her a cycle. I didn't have much money either. They actually had nothing. I bought her a cycle in 1983. And she's very excited. Dadaji is coming. Bought me a cycle. He finished his course. Then he got a job with Marconi's in the same works where I got my training. That should go into history. He was working in the same works where I did my apprenticeship. Vicky had bought a Datsun, absolutely broken down. He went to the library and borrowed Datsun's technical handbook. He repaired that car, opened the engine up, and got the car back in good working condition. Only Vijay could do that. 1985, I retired from that. So 97, myself and Madhu, we went to stay with Vijay and Vishu, and then also went to Vancouver.